to become self-dependent and how to manage those risks. And Julio Verdeguet talked about that, how to provide organizations with the tools they need to be prepared to become resilient, to become sustainable in the market, and that could have a direct impact on their business models. So I just wanted to highlight that because what Eric said yesterday of the different organizational categories, the SMEs were not there, but now we're talking about that as a category. I'd like to know a little bit more about that from that perspective that you guys work. Two more, and that would be it. Okay. Congratulations. Great presentations, folks. Really good presentations. I am a little curious. I'm talking to my colleague. We talk about the two dimensions of sustainability with productive partnerships and support to the FFOs. The first dimension of sustainability is the project end up being a permanent program as part of the government or in the public system. And the second dimension is the one that you have presented. If the business plans or whichever other intervention, and if they have had any type of permanent impact in the organization in terms of coming 5, 10 years after and see if they still stand and how they are faring. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, specifically in a set of projects such as PAR in Bolivia, that it's in a third phase, because it's a very similar to the one we see in Honduras, that is in the third phase, right? So that type of lessons learned, if you could probably talk a little bit more about that, delve a little deeper. We're thinking about that when in the multilateral organisms we assess impact regardless of, but these three phases allow us to come back to the first phase and see 5, 10 years after what has been the actual impact in the FFOs. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our colleagues. So please. All right. Very, very quickly, please. And then we go to the next. So please go right ahead. I have a question regarding the Mexican case. Not only these experiences, but the ones you have been presenting for a while now in the morning. For example, when a lot of the budget depends on these multilateral agencies, and that's and not from the government. They do not depend on the government. I don't see that at the budget level. I actually see it all of the funds that come from ICA, from the World Bank, from all these multilateral agencies, because that's a contrast that disappeared in Mexico 10 years ago. The Ministry of Agriculture, the entire budget, it's federal. It comes from the government. And furthermore, when the discussion is about how important family farming is nowadays, and the various budgets compared to big-scale agriculture, they're very, very small, which is in stark contrast with the Mexican case, because 80% of the budget in Mexico is subsidies for small-scale and mid-scale farmers, no longer for large-scale farmers. So how are we going to support? How are we going to strengthen if we're resting in the foundations and the budgets of the governments are very, very low in comparison to the rest of the agriculture? Or they have a great importance when it comes to numbers. Thank you. Marta, and this one, and then we finish with that. Alvaro and Eugenia, just a few minutes for your closing remarks. My question is probably out of context. but it's important for me as a rural farmer. It has to do about the previous COGS. What are the results before climate change to work the issue of climate change? And the other one has to do, I don't have information about CO2 markets. We didn't talk about that, and I am interested in that. Thank you, Marta. Thank you. A quick reflection. There are graduation mechanisms that are going to come out of the support programs. The panelist, when does the support come to an end? Or is there a next stage? And the second question would be in the subsidies. How much of that is individual subsidy and how much is that pool subsidy? Due to order and because each speaker can actually think about what they want to answer. I'm asking you, please, let's try and do very, very short, please. Alvaro, are you still connected? Very well. Alvaro, please go ahead.
No, muy brevemente, no tengo mucho para agregar.
I don't have much to say in this regard.
Yo creo que todo lo que se
I
ha dicho
think
es muy
that
ilustrativo.
everything that has been said is self-explanatory, but I would
Lo
emphasize
que expresé hace un rato.
that
La
first
colaboración
off, the
internacional,
international
internacional, los programas,
cooperation agencies and the projects financed by this type of funding
100%
must
alineados
be
con la
100%
definición
aligned
política
with
del
the
gobierno.
definition of the
Desde los programas
government
y
public
proyectos hay que
policies
construir y
from the
financiar.
programs and the
Si
projects.
no,
You
no se
have to
pueden
create and
financiar, los
construct
proyectos pasan y los fondos se
institutions.
quedan.
If not, and there will be
Segundo,
no
la clave
sustainability.
del fortalecimiento de las
Secondly, the
organizaciones
key
del
for
sector
strengthening
es la
FFOs
formación de
and
sus equipos
cooperatives
dirigentes
is
de
the
titulares para
training
tales
of their
estrategias.
cadres, of their management, and their staffing. So it's really important to apply resources or invest resources in training and capacity building, financing and pre-financing ICTs into cooperatives, making it easier for them to have access to connectivity, pre-investment in the distribution of public services and goods so that these cooperatives become executors of the policies. They can be co-executing of the policies because they have more local presence than the government, and they're all sovereign and they can be governed by different governance structures. Then I will promote private partnerships. SMEs cannot, so they can actually gain capacity. Cooperatives are actually companies. They are for profit because they are companies, but how do they internally distribute the revenue? And they do it, but they got good business. They do it based on good prices for the products and low prices for inputs. There are actually service providers. There are various services that a lot of cooperatives in the Americas can render, and they're not only offering products. And lastly, what I meant to say is we have to promote the cooperative as a way of providing services and substituting subsidies as much as possible by providing contracts to provide public services. And that would be my comments. Eugenia? No, Eugenia is no longer with us. César. It's various question. I'm gonna try and be very executive. First off, I believe that profit non-profit, the character of FFOs, I agree with what Alvaro says. I think we are beyond being shy. And I do believe that permanent programs to generate growth and wealth are a reality now, and we need to continue to strengthen them. So we simply need to see beyond that theoretical duality because um, many of the leadership teams and people that are part of the union representation and that have to do with political and institutional roles are part of it, but not always. So there is a convergence of aspects that we have to overcome that shyness. Incentives. What happens? And I'm just going to ask this question to myself. What happens with incentives with mid-scale and large-scale companies in agriculture? And that is a good question to ask yourselves because very many times what we do have are permanent incentives towards mid-scale and large-scale farmers or farming companies. That does exist as well, and they are relatively permanent. When the governments open markets, free trade agreements, based on what's going on today, which are one of the elements that need to be regulated in order to address market uncertainty, one of the factors that do provide most weight in the pondering is the market that are most demanding, and that has been a constant factor in the last 3 decades. So, asking yourself if the incentive should come to an end or not, the question should rather be, is it well used or not? Is it put to good use? Does it have a good impact? Is it achieving objectives and goals? Because that is the question, because the relationship between the government and specific activities when there is asymmetric approach, that type of aid should be frankly permanent, and that's what happens in the rural urban relationship. So my question would be precisely the permanent. When is it not permanent, or when should it not be permanent? Specifically, everything that has happened in the rural agrarian environment is permanent. The impact, we are in agreement. We owe there. We have issues to address there, measuring impact, and I would like to skip to one of the most complex question that I expected the question to come from one, which is the egress, the exit. When do these programs end? Are they permanent or not? Effectively, we have a very, very difficult discussion going on in Chile that has made us question many of the development tools that we have in IDA. It's a crude conversation because of the budgetary constraints that we have and that will continue to exist. So the concrete question is, why do I need to give up the resources to INDAP resources instead of a healthcare center in a small city? So resources are competing. It's a matter of cost opportunity. An improvement of infrastructure that is extremely expensive, lighting in rural areas, internet infrastructure. So what we're defining precisely is that There has got to be something finite. We have to work in finite things. And maybe just the most exact word is not the exit. It's not probably not a matter of just getting kicked out, because it's not about getting kicked out. But maybe we need to talk about sequencing, and definition of sequencing is just moving into different stages in the development process. And we could probably try and have a different mechanism um, in order to have results of impact. We do have a very clear definition of who's following. Because why? Because there is a very large number of people that are not being assisted or that have not received any type of support. And therefore, when we have not been able to achieve the results we're looking for, we really need to think about there could be a change there. And last but not least, government. In Chile, budgets, and I am going to speak on behalf of Chile, the budgets are very stable, very continuous. So the question is always priority. Which are my priorities rather than what's the amount per line item? Because it's all about priorities. But the governments, and then just now, different administrations, they do have a certain degree of stability. So there's been quite a little while. There was a change in 2010, 2012, but the rest of it has been pretty stable. So not spending a lot in coverage, but we can address different issues regarding quality. Well, there were various questions that were posed. We must highlight that these type of interventions, they do have an impact in macroeconomic terms. If we're talking about often imported products to meet the national demand, the in-country demand,
Recording in progress. De un instituto, creo que es contratado el Banco Mundial para hacer una evaluación en varios proyectos a nivel global, ¿no es cierto? Entonces, fueron a Bolivia y se entrevistaron con algunos productores y les dijeron, pero ustedes cómo si no son pobres, vienen en vehículos, muchos de ellos en vehículo último modelo, ¿no es cierto?, a la reunión. Pero ellos les dijeron, cuando empezamos veníamos en bicicleta. ¿No es cierto? No teníamos y gracias al apoyo que hemos recibido, ahora nuestros negocios son tan prósperos que nos va bien, ¿no es cierto? Y ¿hasta cuándo apoyamos? Es una sola vez que apoyamos, una sola vez a la familia y no más, porque hay disponibilidad de recursos suficientes en el sistema financiero porque estos pequeños productores ya tienen un buen negocio, ya tienen una buena rentabilidad, tienen ya todas las condiciones de garantía para poder acceder al sistema financiero y por lo tanto les apoyamos para que vayan al sistema financiero para que puedan crecer si requieren mayores capitales, ¿no es cierto? Es una sola vez que se les apoya a los productores. No sé de qué año data aquí el proyecto que están haciendo en Honduras, no sé de qué año es, pero ya el año 2000 realizamos un estudio sobre que lo titulamos La visión campesina de los cambios allí en Bolivia. Consultamos a 60 en 60 municipios a varios productores de diferentes pisos ecológicos y ellos nos dijeron varios elementos que nos llevó prácticamente a determinar que necesitaban este apoyo para concretar sus buenas ideas, buenas perspectivas. Ellos estaban sin plata en el bolsillo, ¿no? Y ese tiempo había un dicho que recorría desde la Argentina hacia el norte, ¿no? Que al pobre nadie le da, al pobre nadie le presta, si algo llega a tener gotas de sangre le cuesta, decía, ¿no? Entonces, para que no haya esas gotas de sangre, precisamente es que empezamos a plantear esto a los organismos internacionales. Y no es, digamos, un regalo de los organismos internacionales, es un crédito a nuestros países que todos vamos a tener que pagarlos, todos los habitantes de nuestros países. No es un regalo de los organismos internacionales, es una inversión de recursos públicos que hacemos a través del crédito que nos otorgan estos organismos internacionales, ¿no? Sobre el tema del cambio climático es muy importante. Estamos empezando nosotros con la metodología exact de la FAO, implementando en cada una de las intervenciones que tenemos y vamos a empezar a medir ya las reducciones de gases de efecto invernadero en cada una de las unidades.
Each of the units.
Hemos tenido
We have had
un buen apoyo tanto de los técnicos del
great
banco como también
support
de la
by
FAO
the
y
bank
rápidamente
technicians
hemos logrado
as
capacitar
well
a
as the
los técnicos que están
FAOs.
atendiendo en
And
línea
we've
a
also
nuestros recursos
developed
que
a
son
lot of
digitales. Por lo tanto,
capacities.
se
Uh,
pone como requisito para
so
trabajar en este tema que realicen
this
virtualmente
is a
y
requirement for
después
virtual
ya con
curses.
esa base, con ese
And
conocimiento
with that
que es importante,
foundation,
luego
that
se
knowledge
hace
that is
cursos
pretty
virtuales y
good,
prácticos donde ya la gente
there
puede
are
apoyar
practical
esto a las
and online
organizaciones
curses so
reproductoras
that
para
they
que
can
estas
actually provide
organizaciones
support
más
for the
adelante estén
FFOs
reportando a
so
estas
that they're going to be
organizaciones
reported in this system that I showed you.
bastante
This is
complejo que
a very
en cuanto a
complex and complete
resultados,
system,
¿cierto? Porque
and
prácticamente
all
lo
of
que
our
hemos encontrado
operations, all of our
son los
indicators,
resultados
all
que
of
hemos
the
logrado
results that we can
estar
achieve
día a día,
are
tomando
day
en
in
cuenta
and
y
day out.
actualizándose, ¿no? Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Having said that, we come to the end of this session. Thank you to our speakers and the questions to our participants. Let's move on. All right. The idea now is to do the before last session. Leslie, please, can you join us? And Alino Lasco with him, Eduardo Ruata Garcia, and Arturo Condo, please.
Buenas tardes. Esta es la penúltima, es la sesión 6.
This is the one before last session. Its title is Experiences of OPTs and of Private Promoting Institutions. In the panel we have David Nolasco Cruz. She is director of Timopac, the Intercultural Organization of Mexico, and member of the board of directors of Slopus International. We have Mr. Arturo Condo, rector of Verity University in Costa Rica. Oden Garcia, president of the National Association of Producers of Quinoa of Bolivia, and Eduardo Rota, director of TechnoSurf Guatemala. It is a global organization of support to organization and technology. So if you care, so we can begin with Dali.
Sí, ok.
Estoy chiquita.
I am a little small.
Bien. Bueno, pues muchísimas
Well,
gracias. Primero, la siguiente, la
Good
siguiente,
afternoon.
por favor.
The next slide, please.
Primero
I would
agradecer
like
la
to first
invitación.
thank for the invitation.
Me pidieron que
They
compartiera
asked
un
me
poco la
to
experiencia
share the experience.
espero no enloquecer a los
I hope that I don't
traductores.
make the translators go crazy.
Señas y hablo
You please
demasiado
make me
rápido.
some signs if I would talk
Bueno,
too
también
fast.
gracias a las personas
Thanks to all the people who are also looking at us, transmission on live, and the people that are here in presence. They asked me to share the experience that I have of working with women and indigenous people in Mexico, are my personal experience in Mexico and my experience with youth in Latin America and the Caribbean. So this approach and this presentation, sorry, has a strong approach on youth uh, of indigenous women. I am a Nahua woman from the community of La Oda in the state of Puebla, Mexico. The next one, please. I would like to begin this presentation with a personal story and present to you Miss Lucy. Miss Lucy is my mom. She is a Nahua indigenous woman that for always she has had a concern. She began to think that something in her surrounding was not right, and her being woman and being indigenous forced her to look for other options. So she started to break down paradigms. She started participating in processes, community processes, and she served as promoter in the clinic of the community. She worked as a literacy or educator for adult people, and then later as a female farmer, she started participating in small groups of producers and then requested a financing to the government through the then National Indigenous Institute that has some regional funds. And these regional funds lent some money to the small producers to be able to invest that into their crops with an interest and not as high as that of the banks, but they had to leave some sort of collateral for those credits. So my community is a community that produces a serrano hot pepper and coffee, but the strongest production that we have in the year is serrano chile, serrano pepper. So, sorry. So, through this experience, these groups were mixed. They had the participation of husbands and wives. But then the women started noticing or started to think that they see that they were having difficulties because both had the credit, but they started to have problems because the next year they couldn't request credit anymore. Why not? Because the husband had not paid. So that impeded them from continuing on asking or requesting another loan. And another thing that this fund used to do is that it financed only year after year for the production of that period. So they said, no, we have to generate our own groups because we cannot be at the disposition that our colleagues, colleague males that do not pay, because since the credit was requested as a group, nobody, if somebody didn't pay, nobody could access any new resource. So in this way, these females started to organize, and they said, no, we're going to request it as women. But here there was another great problem here. The women are not owners of the land. So we didn't have, or the female colleagues did not have what to leave as guarantee except for the word. And that's how, and please, I put this image there to represent this problem is a birth that affects women globally. And I wanted to also point out that as women, we suffer triple discrimination. First, because we are women, there is a violence, a systematic violence, a horrible systematic violence in every sense. Then, for being indigenous, the racism, the discrimination that we suffer, the indigenous women, is very, very strong, and nobody talks about this openly. And I also say that we, the women, are poor, and we are poor because we are not owners of the land, which leaves us in complete vulnerability for other type of violences that are generated on us and on our bodies. So worldwide, I forgot where the data comes from, but globally, 1% of the big cake of the world belongs to women. Only 1%. How many women? How many rural indigenous farmer women really have lands? It's very few of us. And I say have because I had the fortune of having my mom inherit me with a small plot. It's about a 60 by 40 plot in which I can plant and I can build a house here. But in reality, this is for us. For us, it is a great challenge. And then also, we have the need of organizing also, because we, the women, also have a role that has been assigned to us as the caretakers of the family. So they say, we have to get the credit to produce our pepper and to have income for our family and to be able to improve our life quality. The next one, please. So, this is how it was 120 women approximately when we began with this process. And in this process of deciding, participating only as women, there were also women, very brave women, who decided to go a little beyond that. Not only to stay in requesting the credit and produce and pay. It was a dynamic that we noticed after a while didn't work. So that is how the idea of going beyond that was born of just being producers and becoming transformers. So out of those 120 women, these women that you see there on the slide, and I wanted to show them to you, decided to go into take the risk and create an organization that could transform the Serrano chile that we were producing as an option, giving it an added value as an option for the producers to be able to take advantage of our seeds. I didn't bring it with me because they took it from my bag, but we produce some dry sauce of serrano pepper. That these pepper, the producers normally sell it in green, and we know the problem of the coyotes and the low prices. But in our community, we have the coyotes coming in there, the middlemen, and they pay the price at the price that they, whatever they want to pay us. And that's the reality that we face. But we, as for being a woman, and for being also inheritors of a lot of knowledge of the farm and of also the kitchen, we turn the pepper in our community from sauce to a dry sauce to a dry powder. Because it's only produced once a year. They only want the green pepper that is harvested. It has seeds, and it also obtains a pepper to eat all throughout the year, because in Mexico we like to eat hot pepper, right? If not, the food doesn't doesn't have any taste. So we said, from a product that doesn't have any value and that apart is very strongly linked to the diet of the Mexicans and our people, we saw an opportunity of business. And we said, okay, we ingest the sauce, and they're very nice and so forth, and we have to bottle them and sell them and create an opportunity for the producers to find an alternative market. And that product that remains in the field and many times only rots there, we have to give it a value. So, the next one, please. That is how, in this process, we have a whole movement, internal movement that take place of women who were concerned about almost everything that has to do with us, the women, the indigenous women. So we had the anguishness of talking about topics of violence of gender and all of its type, the physical violence, sorry. The violence, the psychological violence, and we also wanted to attend to the needs of continuing on accompanying the producers in another type of process, such as the organization, such as the rights, such as the gender, and well, a whole wide range of topics, and also to look for an option, an economic option, to be able to improve the quality of life, to improve the income of the producers, both male and female. So in this way, we decided to create 3 organizations, community organizations. Tika, which is the House of the Indigenous Woman. This organization takes charge of attending to problems that are directly linked to violence. Timopatla, which is an organization of professionists that is in charge of creating companion processes in different topics to the communities, to the indigenous and farmer communities in Mopampa, which is a company that seeks to commercialize the local products. Next one, please. So We have created our company, which is the one that you see right there. Little by little, we have involved the youth, and we believe that the organizations in all of its group, not only what has to do with the field and the commercial, I think that we have to think about the whole, this as a whole, it can cause a positive impact. And since I have very little time, can we go on to the next one? Okay, we are part of a global movement, which is Slow Food International, and we were able to be acknowledged as a presidium of slow food, in which we are trying to preserve the native seed of the serrano pepper, because we are competing with a great market, and we were surprised to see Chinese serrano pepper in the national markets that are way below the price of our national product. The kilo of dry serrano pepper might be 150 Mexican pesos. In the Chinese, you can find it in 50 pesos. So the difference is abysmal. The next one, please. We can go to the last, because this for me is something that is really super important. You can research about the slow food organization on the internet. Another one? Okay. Can you go to the end? And I will make a little summary. Okay. We have created, for us, it is very important to create processes that have an intercultural view, that have a point of view of gender, and that have a point of view of organization, that have a point of view of youth and of women. And if we don't have these vertical axis within our processes, we believe that there is not a very strong impact. We design processes, education process for women and for youth, in which we are professionalizing, and we are also contributing and exchanging knowledge between indigenous and farmers. We create a training that we call with the methodology of indigenous to indigenous. This means that we invite farmers, indigenous, old, elderly, to prepare these youth so that we can see and acknowledge that from the indigenous and farmers, the knowledge that we still have to learn from that, and also to see the indigenous to see with dignity all that idea that there is around us. We believe that if we generate processes of training, of strengthening of the job with women and youth, it is very important that not only we prepare them, but also to ensure that they can have access to funds to make what they learned a reality, to make their job with the community a reality. If we just prepare them, there is not a small seed fund, or there is not a fund for them to do this that they have worked for so much. We generate a process of frustration then, because you taught me how to do this, I learned about my rights, I learned this and that, but what's next? So we also try to look that the process is complementary. So what I wanted to take my few minutes to say is, what are the challenges and the opportunities that the organizations of small producers have from the point of view of indigenous people that we are facing to? First, it is the model of the individual and collective rights of our people. Then we face the extractivism of our natural resources, of our territories. Then we have a grave problem of tenure of lands because of the intensive agriculture. That is one of our great problems. We also have threats to our native seeds. We have also been saying it, there's a lot of abandonment of the field because of the little profitability that the small producers have. They are leaving the communities. Many times, many of the programs that are destined to the small producers are written from the desk and not from the collective listening of the farmers, and that is why there is no impact, real impact in the territory. There is very little sensitivity, and still the institutions to talk about women, about youth, about indigenous people, we have to create more awareness. And also, many programs of financing are thought for the intensive production, and not for production that is seen from the point of view of small producers, and then many are now focused on agroecological production or productions that do not damage our motherland. So also, there are many political discourse that talks about the sovereignty of the food safety and not about the food sovereignty. Food safety is it matters what we're going to eat. I, as a government, I show you what you're going to eat. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad for you or for the land. But I believe that this is something that is maybe one of the biggest challenges. How can we improve our job? Well, I think that it is super important for us to get involved with small associations, producers, as allies, not as saviors. So we also have this openness, that we have to have this openness. We have to really be from the institutions that can provide resources seen in the long term, because many times they think about projects in the period of a government or in the period in a very short period of years. But the truth is that if we want to generate an impact, it has to go beyond that. It has to be impacts. It has to be processes, long-term processes, because if not, the impact is not going to be as strong. And as a matter of fact, they said it before. What happens if in 10 years they're going to continue on existing? I don't know. I don't think so. If we don't work on the organizational effort, on the strengthening of the networks, we're not going to. It's not going to exist. We're not going to exist. And I believe that in this, I do want to make a lot of emphasis that government programs, as the institutions, those of us who work with small producers, we have to put our bets on issues related to organization, of collectivity, of knitting networks, so that when you are not there anymore, we can generate an alliance that will establish other processes. And above all, I think that we have to work to be able to access food that is good, clean, and fair for everybody as a human right, and not only for whoever can pay for it. Thank you very much. Yes, and following, I would give the floor to Arturo Condo. Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. Greetings to those who are also connected virtually. Thank you. We wanted to share with you. I am here representing the university that I lead. Our job as an institution that we have done is supporting organizations of small producers, first in Costa Rica and recently also in Guatemala. First, a few words in regard to what Earth is, so that you might understand the context of the job that we do. We are not an organization like the NUSERP that is a global organization with a focus oriented on producers. We are a university that prepares leaders to change food systems, beginning with primary production, but looking at it as a system. We were founded in the year '86 here in Costa Rica with a vision and a vocation, an international vocation. And I'm going to emphasize this in a second with a very systemic vision also. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This is our guiding star, somewhat. And that Ciani has left it very clear. It's not only a matter of feeding. Of course it is. It has to do with good feeding and health. These are global data that are passed on to all of our regions, all of our countries. So access to food, but to good food, the quality of life of producers, especially at a primary level. The majority of the extreme poverty is located within the producing. And please forgive me if I'm talking too fast. And although there are not good data, it is obvious that the great mass of the people that live in extreme poverty, they are producers, and they suffer hunger. It seems that they all have a census that connects them. There's not a census that connects them at a local level, but the data is very evident. So these are things that have to be resolved. The topic of living in poverty and the topic of access to food, and especially all of the environmental part. Food systems that contribute to the climate change and the biodiversity, preservation of biodiversity, but it's the main activity that is affected by the climate change. Our capacities to provide food for the growing human population that is going to be every day more difficult. So, what I wanted to share is that this is our north, our guiding star. This is what we are thinking about when we see a program that is designed from the beginning in a systematic manner and the work that we do with the communities. Next one, please. The left there is, I'm not going to explain it, it's our academic model. I am going to talk about what we have on the right because to support that experiential model we include from the beginning of the program, our students spend one afternoon a week, 10% of their academic time in communities since day one. We opened our doors in 1990. Now, they are not programs, or they do not participate in programs of going to paint a school or to help that punctually that way. They are programs of multiple years. And on an average, they are 7 years working in communities where the communities establish what their priorities are, and we support them. And what we want and what we can support them. And sometimes it's agricultural or agronomic, and many times it's not. And I think that he made a very perfect recount of what all these projects are all about. And this is Costa Rica. I was born in Costa Rica, and only 4 years ago we started working with Guatemala. And let me tell you why. But in the case of Costa Rica, you know that the INDER, this is something that helps the cooperatives that has problems with the tenure of land. And sometimes we have to strengthen an organizational group and a long friendship and so forth, because in reality, the problems are not in silos. The problems belong to all of us, particularly as the producers of food. But the food is systemic. And so I'm going to go a little further ahead. So I wanted to tell you that as part of the academic program at the university, we have the program that is born, the program of community development, so that our students might have an experience, a real experience, as part of their career. And as a matter of fact, when they are in the fourth year of the program, they become the leaders of that project, and they are chosen to do this. Now, in the year 2018, 7 years ago, we said, this is super interesting. We have an accumulation that is very interesting of organizations that do it very well, and we wanted to codify it better, refine it, and also start to think about scaling it. Because the projects that we have here in Costa Rica had been in relatively small groups. And I believe that that's the way it has to be. I think that the most relevant nucleus tend to be too small. But we also have to talk about the scaling. Because many times thinking about humanity in this planet, and according to the reality and according to the FAO, this is a cumulative statistic. There are 570 million small farms. In Latin America, we have 125 million. 25 million, sorry. So if we want to do this, get to 25 million, 15 by 15, it's gonna take us a long time. So, and by the way, the organization of small producers are crucial. I was looking at the numbers from the presidency of Chile, and when we started to see, and we saw the numbers and data, 4 persons or 4 beneficiary for every person to attend to 25 million of that farm of Latin America. I needed 6 million of those agents. And we would have to think, okay, where are they? And to attend to the 570 million farms of the world, we would have to have 100 million of those agents. Just so that we can add, because we want to reach everybody, right? All of us have the right to going on to the state, in this case of sustainability, the more sustainable, and we have to create the future. We put it in English so that we could look for funds. Our students, by the way, 20% are Africans, 30% of them don't speak Spanish. The program is in Spanish here in Costa Rica. Everybody learns Spanish. Very interesting. But this idea is that one forms leaders beyond the academic program, and the other one is the solutions. So the work with the programs is branded on that, and refining things that we have developed internally throughout these almost 35 years of experience to be able to share. So the next one, please. We have focused and we have used systemic focus in this graph, and we have even more complex graphs, but just to remember what I've said before. This is agronomical, biological, economic, social, cultural, and in all of its dimensions. then I could talk about this, but it's not the moment. But I want to share a little bit of our learnings instead of that. And as a matter of fact, each one of the previous presentations, and listening to Addie for this moment, she has put it very clear. It's a matter of market. It's a matter of competencies, competition, and so forth. So just to share that the focus has always been systemic. And next one, please. This one, we can't see it very well. These are the maps of Costa Rica and Guatemala. We have worked in a little more than 200 communities between the two countries since 2018. This is something that we have increased the scale of what we have been doing to this year. Next year, next one, please. And in added numbers, we have been able to work with 3,700 small producers, having an impact on a little more than 100,000 people. There we have their employees, their family members, their direct employees. Sorry, we have worked with 8,000 persons directly, and we have strengthened more than 100,000 because we have not only helped the producers, because we have helped also the school, the town, because the school students have been receiving a little bit of training, and sometimes it's the case in Guatemala with the municipality, for example, because the municipality, with the best of the intention, wanted to help us, and they wanted to help us with a view of their tools. In that same concept, 3,000 youth have had a training, additional training, in an additional program that we call Skills for the New Agriculture of the Future, and I already mentioned more than 100 organizations. I'm going to tell you a case, a very nice case from here from Costa Rica, to the question of when to come out. In this case, we have already gone there. We worked with them. We are giving follow-up also. And this is not a matter of overnight. Addie said it very well. It has to be remedial sometimes, but this is a very interesting case because these were a group of producers, 70 producers, all of them women, in Ojancha here in Guanacaste, and they used to produce transgenic corn that some producer was giving them. In the beginning of the project, they started to decide to start planting a mojave corn, something that is endemic here, but a corn for which there was not a greater market here in Costa Rica. So what I wanted to tell you is the integrality of the project. I said the agriculture of precision without training, looking at the soils, many technical agronomical things that are necessary to be able to do so. But among the most interesting things is one was the strengthening of them as leaders of the organization, etc. And we even came to complete this because the young woman decided to do it differently, but we were trying to have the young girl of one of the cooperatives to come and study this. She decided something else, but we were looking for that, which is an element of sustainability. Who's going to lead this?
Danny, it's a very, very young woman, and I admire everything that she said. We need new generations. As Danny, yes, but new generations as well, and that is sustainability as well. Not only just strengthening current leadership, but also future leadership. And the most unexpected part for me was that university became part of the Costa Rican Gastronomic Association to relaunch or revamp in difference to the Saran Chilean in Mexico, to the Pujagua corn in Costa Rica. So there were a lot of various restaurants here in the Central Valley. For those who live in Costa Rica, I don't know if you've been able to see this, but what do you call these restaurants? Kiwa. That they actually created a drink, a cocktail based on this type of corn, and the people that were not in the program, but they already had a dish based on this type of corn, and said, "This is really nice, because now we can find it." So in a way, we revamped a market. We published that book, which is The Women of Corn, with older women in the community that could remember how to do 100 recipes of different things. And I'm telling this as a case. And we've got many different cases of systemic stuff due to the years, due to the strengthening of leadership. Next, please. And this is a little bit of a summary. We haven't really published this. This is an internal process in which we have three main areas, and we need to continue to fine tune it. The productive part, without a doubt, is called resilient because it's improving productivity, but also climate change. Climate change not only about temperatures, also about salinity in the ground, about water management. Experts know about that. It has to do with access to market. In Guatemala, we're working with very remote indigenous communities, and we do an annual, a yearly event with potential buyers in city of Guatemala. That connection for those cooperatives that participate is kind of magical because before they didn't have any access, and access to markets is an access to people, access to buyers of retailers or processing companies. In Guatemala, most of the producers are coffee farmers. In Costa Rica is way more diverse, and access to market is vital. And that includes the challenging of selling it green. I roast it, or maybe I do a sauce or a sauce to a specific region, or do I brand it? Or in China pays more because it has a history, it has roots that people can relate to. We human beings, we pay a lot of money for things that are really not expensive to produce, ones that we can capture and perceive a value. So that business model is a core part, which is that third part. So institutional strengthening business and production in an integrated and systemic way. Next, please. And this is the last slide. And what I really wanted to share here are the lessons learned. Our vision, this is a lab for us. We need to continue to contribute with the thoughts. And thank you very much for this invite on how to do it better and how to scale it up better. And the answer is pretty obvious through FFOs. How do we strengthen the family farming organizations? That's the $1 million question. Technology is there, but there is one thing that we have it very clear in the last 8 years. Technology is not the same as solution. This phone, it's wonderful. It has got data and stuff, but if the person cannot use it for as a solution for, let's say, for example, medicine at a distance or telemedicine, if there's not a spec in their language or an app that they can use, because we all human beings that have access to smartphones, what we do today, 30 years ago, did require maybe just a degree in system engineering. We do this just intuitively. What we're learning to do with ChatGPT, it was the use of this technology. It was only until it became intuitive, until a child could do it. And why is it intuitive? Because it is intuitive. And I applaud everything that was mentioned by Fontager before. That's a line of work that's really important. And last but not least, the synthesis of the four things that we believe are crucial for small scale farmers and for family farming organizations. Financing, not enough financing. Chile is Chile, and we all admire a wonderful path that this country has had in the last 30 or 40 years. It's something commendable. Maybe Bolivia and the national financial system, they have enough fund for their farmers. It's not the case everywhere, and it's not the case of having access to women. Women having access to these funds or to these resources of finance is actually an issue, and if it's short term, that's another issue. Two, knowledge, not only agronomics. It's all about markets, understanding where the niches are. How do I strike gold, and how can that be translated into a price in the market? Access to market, 3 and 4, and this is the last. It's time. Danny took most of my presentation with what she mentioned before, but this doesn't happen overnight. The transformations we need to carry out to have more sustainable systems do not take a year. It all depends on the product cycle. It might take 5 years, 10 years. So that time, small scale farmers, they don't have it. I am doing regenerational cattle growing, and they don't really need the cash flow. But small scale farmer needs liquidity, and FFOs can't help because you can provide some type of insurance policy and strengthen that way of doing time management. And we believe that has a great potential. Having said that, thank you very much. 15 minutes. I'm done.
Muchas gracias. Nuestro siguiente presentador es Oden García. Adelante.
¿Más trabaja con Edwin? Que cierto. Sí. Todo. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Oden Garcia. I am the president of the National Association of Quinoa Farmers, ANAPQUI. ANAPQUI has been established for 40 years now as a company, as a national association of quinoa producers or quinoa farmers. Next, please. ANAPQUI gathers over 2,200 partner farmers and over 20,000 families distributed in the mountains of Bolivia. We have two departments, Oruro and Potosí. That's our field of action. We work with or farming quinoa. That's our scope of action by department in Oruro. We have 8 regional cooperatives. These are small associations that have their own board. Each board has their own chairperson, a VP, a treasurer, and we also have a fiscal, the ones that controls all of the activities and the financial movements that each lead does for each of these regional organizations in different locations or villages. Next one, please. This is the scope of action in the that are different communities and different families. Next, please. Business model. ANAPQUI works throughout the productive chain of quinoa from sowing all the way to finished product. This activity is linked to ecological, social, and economic components, which are the 3 axes that sustain our institutional life. Our royal quinoa had a guarantee of traceability that is demonstrable and transparent. How do we do that? We have our technical equipment that does provide traceability on the field in the communities that produce quinoa. I will go deeper into details. What is the cooperative model for ANAPQUI? First of all, the market. We guarantee market for quinoa with fair and stable prices. Mostly what we're trying to do is watching out for the farmers. We make sure that we have a fair weight and a fair price in a stable manner. That did cause a certain economic imbalance. It's not easy to control this situation for an association. That resources are free, they're flowing freely. It's not a private company that can't easily have an economic reserve to be able to react when necessary. So technical assistance, we do provide technical assistance to the different 15 regional companies, which is Proquinat, which is a program, natural quinoa program, Proquinat in Spanish. And we disseminate knowledge about the growth of quinoa and the production of quinoa. Sustainability, we do promote organizational strengthening based on the resources and the possibilities that we have. We look after the strengthening of the different organizations. We make sure that they do have regular meetings, regular technical training sessions, and management of crop management and primary production. Local leadership, we train and create leadership skills for people. We hire people and facilitators, and we actually capture support from other organizations. So we also distribute the prime of fair trade. We sell our product. We have an agreement with fair trade, so we give them quinoa and they give us a prime for the sale of quinoa, and that is distributed amongst the different farmers. Incentive to become an entrepreneur. We assign regional resources to improve their warehouses. The warehouses are exclusive repositories where we can store quinoa for each farmer. That's what it means. Employment. We create direct and indirect employment for partners and their children. With this situation of managing and having the control, we do that task. What I'm showing here you is the structure, the general organizational flow of ANAPKI. The highest authority is the ordinary assembly, and we also have extraordinary assembly, and according to the needs of the ANAPKI. So following, we have the technical general manager. We have an internal auditor and all of the technical staff that is required for all of the different phases of ANAPKI. We move forward. Research, crops, and technical assistance in agriculture. In the hands of Proquinat, we produce organic quinoa. So therefore, Proquinat is a natural quinoa program that is composed by practitioners, agronomists. Here you can see all of the different activities that we carry out. They do provide tracking and follow-up so that the farmer can actually guarantee their product is organic. Processing plants. Just to explain, ANAPKI, we do the three phases of ANAPKI. From primary production with small-scale farmers, you have the technical assistance and capacity building. So we also do the transformation of quinoa. This is the Chayapata plant in Oruro, and we have a benefit. We wash the quinoa, we select by color and size, and all of the excellence that the raw material can have, and the El Alto plant in La Paz. That's to do finished product, and we will show you. So this is the agro-industrial plant in Chayapata. The process is what we do here, please. In Chayapata, just continuing, we do the selection of quinoa. We do white, red, black, flakes, flour of quinoa. Those are the products. This is the industrial plant in El Alto. These are the products with added or aggregate value for finished products. Here, as you can see, we have the different products that we have. We do noodles. We produce strudels. We do cereals, cookies, biscuits, energy bars covered in chocolate. Those are all the finished products that we provide. This is the distribution of finished products. This is the logistics network and our warehouses. ANAPKI, it's a point of reference nationally and internationally for ANAPKI. Food safety and quality are absolute priorities. ANAPKI at some point was the first organization in the world, and we were the first exporter of quinoa in the world. It's been 40 years now. We have enough experience now from production, transformation, exporting, and sales to market. We also have the ISO 22000 issued by Star Register, STA Register, and we do guarantee food safety, quality, and compliance with national and international regulations of all our productive processes. So we are regulated by the different certifications as issued. This is the certification logo of the ISO 22000. As you can see here, that's the certificate, and you can see the picture there. Following. These are the different certifications held by ANEPKI as of today. Here, ProKINAP actually does the tracking and the follow-up of organic production. We did the NOP USDA, we have the UAECO, the Fair Trade USA, the World Organization of Fair Trade, so on and so forth. This is the origin denomination. Why? Because we are consolidating our origin denomination for royal quinoa of the southern plain in Bolivia. We did get that from Ecuador, Bolivia, and Peru. The one before, please. There we go. So maybe just provide a little bit more detail. What is this origin denomination? Sometimes our government, in this case, maybe didn't run the calculation and they declared the International Year of Quinoa in 2013, and we did promote quinoa as such. And back then there were only 3 countries that would produce quinoa. That was Bolivia, Peru, and Ecuador. So since the International Year of Quinoa, Evo Morales started showcasing quinoa, and there are over 100 countries that produce quinoa. So now we have a lot of competition now. We're not the only exporters. There's a lot of competence. There's a lot of competition, sorry. And the product that we produce is organic. And the market is maybe just over 100% quinoa, only about 15% is organic. We have access to that 15%. 85% of the market is just whatever else quinoa, So producing organic quinoa has a very high cost of production. Next, please. Difficulties we have to face. The appropriate reaction depending on the situation, which is the cost of raw material. Since we are an agro-industrial association, we don't really have a financial reserve that would allow us to react immediately to whatever difficulties could arise. Which is exactly the opposite in the private companies, that they do have a reserve. Since we are a social-based organization, whatever resources, whatever profit, it's actually being circulated to the small farmers. We still lack direct support by the government or other agencies. There is spontaneous support because they're not continuous and they're not strategic either. We would like to get the support for land use surveys, strategic actions for the farmers. Next, weather factors or climatological factors that do affect the yield of optimum. We're talking about droughts, we're talking about storms, we're talking about freeze, and this is wind, the first one, and the second one is I'm showing you a windstorm. It's terrible what you have to go through in the high plains of Bolivia. We're talking about 30 or 40 kilometers per hour. And here you can see that's actually wind. It looks like rain, but it's actually wind. And take a look at how the parcels look like. And as you can see, everything gets covered by the dust blown by the wind, and those are significant losses. And on the other end, as you can see, this is the permafrost, the frost, and the low temperatures affecting the quinoa farmers in the region where we produce in June, July, temperatures drop to minus 12 Celsius. But quinoa, produced between September through April, the temperatures are not as low, but it tends to happen in very suddenly with this climate change. And quinoa can only survive down to minus 4 Celsius, so we only do one harvest per year. We don't have the possibility to get continuity in the harvesting of quinoa. We can only harvest quinoa once a year.
¿Qué sucede en el altiplano
So these factors in the southern plains of Bolivia, it's an economic constraint and a direct threat to our livelihood. As you can see here, the plant is, I can say, I can have a good harvest, but then there is a change in the month of January, February, March. If we've got significant temperature drops, the whole harvest is lost. And the quinoa producing families, that's their only product. They have no other way of producing anything else. We don't have that possibility. We do have camel-like livestock, but not in great quantities. Now we have this project called TIRFA Coprofan. We are enjoying this product. We are getting the benefits of this project. We are trying to improve the gene pool of the seed in the high plains in the southern part of Bolivia. From March 2024 through February 2027, 36 months, the beneficiary is ANAPI COEC. 40 farmers in the communities of Chalwa, Aguaquisa. These are direct beneficiaries. We are running the trials to improve the gene pool of the seed. It's 70,000 families that will benefit it in the future. That's the objective with this project. We have agreement with different agencies, agencies that are providing follow-up for universities, the International Quinoa Center, and other academic institutions in Bolivia work by trials and identify plots by different farmers and varieties that have shown resilience of facing climate change. We have identified which strains of quinoa, which varieties of quinoa can be more resistant to cold and drought. Drought, it's another determinant factor, because if we sow the seed but there is no water, then we don't have the seeds sprouting. Here you can see the technicians. They do the selection of the seed, and they have to be gauging the height of the plant. They have to do pest control and so on and so forth. These are the different works done in the project. And that would be esteemed. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and attention. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, Eduardo Roata.
Buenos días a todas y todos.
Good afternoon to all of you.
No sé si esto funciona.
I don't know if this is working.
¿Sí?
Yes, it works. Okay. I am representing TechnoServe, which is an institution, a global institution. We have offices in 30 countries. The TechnoServe is confusing a little bit when it was established more than 54 years ago. It was going to be TechnoServe of technical assistance. Today, TechnoServe sounds more like they call us to see if we repair computers, if we install networks, and things like that. But in reality, we come from technical assistance. And what we do around the world is technical assistance. We are a nonprofit. We don't make houses. We are not Habitat. We are not the Red Cross. We don't have programs. We don't do. We carry out development programs around the world. And a great part of the programs that we carry out are in the agro. We strengthen cocoa production chains, vegetables, cattle, dairy. We have an area for corporation strengthening. Let's see if I can do it here. Okay, yes. Now, in Guatemala, sorry, and I leave you there the link at the bottom. I don't know if you can see it, but there you can see more information of what we do. And this month, we had the impact report where you can see what TechnoServe does all throughout the world, how we are financed, and so forth. The impact report is in Spanish, English, French, Portuguese. So there you have, so that you can do some night reading. I'm not going to take any time in talking about that. In Guatemala, we have worked more than 20 years. Last year, we attended to 15,000 beneficiaries. We had financial benefits of $28 million incremental, and we were able to reach 39% of those 15,000 plus producers or beneficiary companies, and they were women, 39% of them. How does TechnoServe work? Well, we are a nonprofit, as I said. We don't charge the producer. We receive donations from organisms, international organisms, to carry out development programs. For example, the programs that are active right now in Guatemala, one is called MOCA, financed by USDA, JDE, and Pete's Coffee. That program works in Honduras, Salvador, Nicaragua, Peru, and Ecuador, and it is on coffee and cocoa. Another program that we have is Cafetec. It is financed by Tim Horton. We have Potencia Tu Agro, which is financed by the Arcadias, Empowered Families, that is financed by Nespresso, and the program of strengthening for the small producers, that is financed by the Walmart Foundation. I'm going to stop. They asked me because the impact is greater with the organizations of producers that are financed by the Walmart Foundation, the financing of small producers. So I'm going to talk more about what we're doing there. And we are attending to right now approximately 4,000 producers. We advise in 27 different organizations of producers, and there you can see the numbers that we have, the product that we have. We have peas, snow peas, a potato, avocado. And maybe I'm not going to stop on the challenges that the organizations have, because the colleagues have already talked about this, and they have done a very good job in detailing that. And in Guatemala, there's a lot of mention about what has been said. So I'm going to talk more about certain aspects that are different to what we have said before. So I'm not going to stop to talk much about that. But you're going to see that you can see that in Guatemala, just like in other places, the obstacles are very similar. They work on remote places that are very difficult to have their products taken to the market. When we work individually, we generate low volumes. That is why the idea of the aggregates, be it formal or informal, through cooperative associations, to be able to reach to have quality products. The chains that we are looking for are export chains, and there we have a question if the producers can reach the international quality standards, especially with these changing times. For example, the European Union has changed some regulations and how this impacts the producers to be able to have access to that market. And also how we live that in the ecosystem. In the case of women and youth, it is similar than to other countries. The men are migrating, especially to the north. And so we have the women staying behind in charge of the farm. The problem is that traditionally the women are in disadvantage because they don't receive the same education or the same opportunities uh, as men might have. So this generates a disadvantage. And as they said it before, sorry, the young men are losing the interest of working on the field. Another factor that makes youth be demotivated for working on the farm, and we were talking about this during lunch, is the fragmentation of the land. Every time that the generations go through, every time the land is smaller. So families of 4 or 5, mom, dad, and 3 or 4 children. There are families that are bigger than that, but let's talk about a regular family with 5 members in the area. Each generation, each 10, 20 years, is going to be fragmented. So what is the fourth child going to receive? Nothing. Maybe the older child can stay and manage the farm, but the others are also already looking for some other activities to do. These are topics that are similar to what has been mentioned before. So I wanted to present something that was different, that we have seen with these 29 organizations that we are advising. And I'm going to tell it to you very detailed. There is much more than that. I'm not going to go into details, but I'm going to separate it into 4 categories. Access to information, access to training, access to input, and access to financing. The last two that I'm not going to talk about, the access to input and access to financing, the biggest problem is the lack of policies and of information to be able to fill the gap between producer and seller. The producers of input want, the sellers of input want to sell what they have in the inventory. The buyers do not know if what they're being sold is what they need. The same thing happens with the financial. The financing institutions want to set their credits according to their policies, rates, to whatever regulations or policies they have, and they are not looking at what are the needs of that the producers might, or the organizations might have. There, the main problem is failure of communication between the stakeholders. And TechnoServe, what it does is be a middleman in those cases. Suppliers of input and financial suppliers to be able to find that empathy or that connection between them. We are connected to the Association of Agricultural Input in Guatemala, so we are promoting other types of input. And to be sure that one of the suppliers of input can do it and they can sell it at a fair price. Access to financing, they have talked a lot about this, so I'm not going to talk too much about this, so I'm going to go to access to information. How can a producer know what are the requirements, their requirements? And I think that the colleague has just given a very important mention that I didn't listen to yesterday, which is precisely the information that is required to see what input we have to make an analysis. So we have done analysis and maps to know what the requirements are. We go with the producers and we recommend, based on those analyses that we make, analysis of soils, and what are the recommendations that we specifically require for that. To the producers, they were given a map of soils that we have developed in each one of those 29, and those map of soils, we help them in the interpretation that might be very technical of what they have to be looking for their associates. And so this is another service that the FTOs, we call it, the organization of producers, they can provide their members. Another topic of regarding information, access to information is the methodological. And I think that's something that was also mentioned by one of the previous speakers. You come into a network and they say, okay, there is 50% probability that we're going to have some rainfall in 3 millimeters in the next 4 days. To a producer, this means nothing. So what we did with them for the chain of avocado is early warning systems. So we have generated a manual in which now this manual, it's the mechanism that we do via WhatsApp is to tell them, hey, we believe that there's going to be some strong winds in the next 3 days. Look at your manual. The recommendations are A, B, C, D, and the recommendations are not field practices, which is to tie down the crop or whatever. And there's also some recommendations that have to do with illness. If it rains a lot, be careful because we might have the dissemination of such illness or something. That is another practical thing that we have done with the organization of producers for these chains. And access to training, I'm going to go to the next one. We have done a mapping of what are the organizations that provide assistance to training in Guatemala for these export products. And we have analyzed where the strengthening of each one of them is and what are the weaknesses and strengths in an attempt to try to strengthen the ecosystem. As TechnoServe, we are aware that we cannot continue on providing technical assistance eternally to all the producers because we work by project. We have a beneficiary, a donor, who comes and gives us money to make some project. But once that money finishes, what is our exit strategy? So right now what we're doing with the program, with the Walmart Foundation, is to see how we can strengthen the ecosystem. And in the case of the training, the opportunity, the most adequate opportunity that was presented to us with this study last year was precisely with the same producer organization. So we believe that if at the moment of strengthening the organization of producers so that they themselves can provide assistance, technical assistance, let's say, many organizations already have education commissions. So the structure somehow works. What is missing, it would be the strategy so that they can focus on that efficiently. So if we believe that the organization of producers can provide technical assistance, well, the answer is yes. The only difference is that we do have to strengthen it so that they can provide it. Overnight, to pretend that they're going to be able to do it, it's not going to work that way. But, and I only have 1.5 minutes. Okay. And with this, I finish. I think that Leslie was making me the question when we were on the bus of our experience of how we see the network of producer organizations. I said they are different. I don't think that they can all be at the same level. And Leslie was asking me, how can you know it? Well, what we do is that in TechnoServe, we use a tool that is an index of ripeness, and we therefore qualify the organizations 5 and 6 logistics and inventory management. There's a tool in which we carry out a survey in over 100, and we can try to typify what value they are at. There are organizations that commercially they might receive a qualification of 100, but there are organizations that will have 20, but there are other organizations that will have 80, and identity of gender might be something different. So there, they ponder it, and we come to a global index. So what do we do? In these organizations, we try to strengthen them where we see the gap. The systems for gender equity, the companies that don't have this, we concentrate on that. Systems of finance, they don't have an adequate financing and they don't have records, well, we try to dedicate more time to that. So what previously, many years ago, maybe 50 years ago, what we had was an army of technicians that would provide technical agricultural assistance now, the model of assistance has been moving so that we might have agricultural advisors, but we also have business advisors. So that profile is different. We're going to have the producer organizers to manage the organizations like if they were a business. And to finish, as you might be able to see, one of the things that distinguish us and that we like is that we start off from the demand, not from the offering. So when we talk about a program, we have the opportunity of scanning producers. We have millions of producers, not 20, and to see, and we can always assist them as long as there is a demand for that product. We don't do technical assistance just for the sake of producing more. We make technical assistance to produce more at a good quality, at a good price, in as much as there is a market that wants to buy it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Eduardo. Because of issues related to time, it's going to be impossible to take questions for this session. We're going to continue on to the final session. Yes, Leslie, but first we would like to thank our panel members, our presenters, for having accompanied us. Thank you very much. We would like to make the closing. I think that we have more than complied with the objective established for the conference. I think that we have done a general review of all the topics, that we have proposed ourselves as coordinators to be able to carry this about. Obviously, the results are going to be set forth in the publication of the memoirs and the articles, but we still have this last session, let's say the closing, where I would like to invite Dr. Manuel Otero, to invite Mr. Luis Marquez, Francisco Hueso, Leslie, who obviously coordinates us with the Cornell Institute, so that we might be able to share and see what are the next the steps to come within this collaborative agenda. But Leslie, I believe that colleagues, I believe that above all, we have the capital, human capital. I think that there have been issues that we would have liked to have one more day with them, one more day to be able to discuss them. We have the contacts of everybody, and I think that the learning of virtuality will allow us to meet virtually, and as we have proposed within this initiative, to be able to have summits every 2 years. This is going to be something that is going to be perfectly possible to meet and to prepare anticipatedly among those who have participated in this first conference, looking towards the future, looking forward. So I would like to give the floor now to the closing words to Francisco. Please go ahead. Good afternoon. Thank you. As I said yesterday in the beginning of the event, it seems to me that it is a tremendous opportunity to listen to all of us, and I think that it has been tremendously valuable, at least from my point of view, because we have had a 360 approach on this. All the stakeholders have had the opportunity of presenting their own perspectives, their challenges that they have in terms of supporting the organizations of small producers, small agricultural producers, and also what are the perspectives to the future, and also to see what it is that we can do. How can we improve it? Because in the spirit of the continuous improvement, there is always many things that can be done. So from the point of view, specifically of the World Bank and the multilateral organisms, we are very much interested in giving follow-up to all the amount of information and context that we have received here, so that we might be able to put together a good plan, what it is that we want to do, what we want to prioritize during these next 2 years, to be able to take actions. So I believe that this is an excellent starting point, this forum, this conference, that with a great thinking, it has been organized by the ICA as well as by the institute. So from my point of view, I take with me many lessons. I didn't have the opportunity of presenting this, but in the projects of productive alert that are financed by the bank and that are supported technically by the bank in support with the technical sector and the private sector, that has supported 7 countries in the last 20 years and that will continue supporting again in the next 5 years, like in the case of Bolivia and Honduras. Pero that many of these lessons, they help us to confirm that the evolution that we have had in this model of productive alliances is on the right road. But there are other new ideas that we have identified here that help us continue on polishing that method, especially that model to give sustainability, to make it sustainable. And I would love to, for example, myself, since we have identified that this is something that we can do jointly between the public and private sectors, is to find what is the way, the best way of giving sustainability. And we always have the card is on the private sector or it's in the public sector. And we talked here that in the spirit of the dragon, the philosophy of the dragon by Bruce Lee, there is not a single solution. And normally the solution implies everything, to incorporate everything, the best of everybody, into this. So let's say that in the model that we have determined after 20 years of work in productive alliances with producer associations at the World Bank, we have come to the point in which we have not worked with one single group, but we have had windows that have come to, we have come to have 4 supporting windows, 2 of them upstream, beginning from the production of subsistence and the production of transmission, and downstream towards anchor companies. And we have seen wonderful examples here in Paraguay,
In Bolivia,
en Guatemala.
in Guatemala. So again, I think this event has come as an eye-opening event to continue to work and improve our support in a joint manner with the private sector, with our regional partners like IICA, our academic like the Earth and Zamorano, all of the universities that have been present here, Sergio, Eric in Brazil, and so on. And with the public sector, see how we can continue to improve that relationship and how we prioritize what we have identified in terms of the needs and what the youth is asking from us and what is being requested to us by vulnerable groups, not only as participants like women, for example, but actually leading and being managers, having managerial and leadership positions that will improve their quality of life. So we are here at your disposition. Thank you again. And I'm also very, very grateful to be here. Thank you. Thank you, Francisco. So we can continue to work this collaborative agenda. Luis, please. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with all of you here during these 2 days to get to know about your work, your aspirations, and your future endeavors. Thank you especially to Leslie and Mario for involving FIDA and all of the other partners in the organizing of this meeting. It was a pleasure for me to build this program together and get to think about each and every one of you. Your experiences could be complementary, and I think we have achieved that with great success because we have had very high level dialogues, and it encourages the whole thing encourages us to continue. And on behalf of FIDA, like that UN agency with a very exclusive legal mandate to fight rural poverty and promote rural development, these discussions are extremely important, and I'll take them for my colleagues in our current 29 investment projects in 16 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean for the coming years with and I invite you all to be part of this project in your countries, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Argentina, and in the countries in which right now we have no projects. We have South-South cooperation projects, knowledge management are part of the regional venues that we have, Mercosur, CELAC, CARICOM, and we have the Farmers Forum, in which the organizations can present their demands, they can give their feedback on FIDA, and we are here in Latin America with this regional online venue as well, foreseeing a workshop next year, a face-to-face workshop, which is going to be in preparation for the global forum every 4 years to take place in Rome. It is important for you because family farming organizations are the backbone of the projects financed by FIDA. Some of our projects were showcased here and move forward on how to do these projects and how to support FFOs, how to work to improve production, innovation, commercialization. With your inputs have been absolutely key from you. So we invite you that in the FIDA projects, we can have your participation. And one last thing for FIDA, this is a challenge in different aspects of how to guarantee that innovation will actually get to the beneficiaries, how to work with governments using the resources in a more efficient manner. But as FIDA, we are looking to work loans as a financial institution, which is part of the private sector. So we have some non-sovereign operations, which we always do with the government. So for FIDA, this integration with the private sector with the objective of providing the greatest potential for product commercializations and promoting sustainable value chains, and we're looking to develop financial tools and instruments for that. So we wanted to talk about that. And once again, just thank you for your availability, your generosity in sharing all of your experiences with all. The warmest greeting to all of you. We hope to see you soon. Thank you. Thank you, Luis. Leslie? Vero? Thank you very much, colleagues. First off, thank you all for your presence in this place. It is a true honor to see that the effort of 18 months came to fruition in this event to the satisfaction of all of you. We repeat this once again. This would have never been possible without the support of the Director General of ICA, the logistics support provided by Mario Leon and his team, and the support of Julio Vertegue in keeping all of us together and creating the organizational committee. I would like to present some of the work that we're doing in Tata Cornell, because despite we do have a lot of work outside of the region, outside of Latin America, I am sure that many of you probably are not familiar with what we are doing. The Tata Cornell Institute is an initiative it's a it's a long-term research initiative that develops and assesses innovative approaches based on food systems to reduce poverty and improve nutrition and livelihoods around the world. So it is part of the Cornell University. And as I said, during the first years of the Institute, the focus has been India. Why? Well, because we did receive support from the Tata Foundation from India, but now we have expanded our research areas into different regions, and we've gotten financing from other institutions as well, regional institutions. I would like to talk very quickly about what we are doing in Tata Cornell regarding the support of the family farming organizations in India. Something very quick, very brief, historical history on this. In 2003, there was a modification in the legal framework of India looking to promote the creation of family farming organizations or small-scale farmers associations. We believe that at least with 10 farmers, they could create an FFO legally. This is legal public information, being that this is a legal enterprise. They need to submit yearly reports, the results report, and this is public information. The Indian government program, at a very high level, the government supports the creation of FFO for the first 3 to 5 years of their life cycle, depending on their circumstances. The government provides resources to the development bank, the agricultural development bank, and they in turn transfer those resources to unions and farmers associations, for example, rice production association, and in turn they support the creation of FFO, new FFOs. These unions that support the creation of FFOs can collect additional information that the FFOs necessarily have to provide for the government. For example, data on their demographic traits, gender specifications, products they actually farm, stuff like that, etc. So there are a lot of public information sources, but it's very dispersed. What we did is that we collected information from all of the different sources and we uploaded that to a digital platform, and we estimate that there are 44,000 FFOs in India, and this is what the platform looks like in our Tata Cornell platform. There is general information here about the FFOs in India, how many have been promoted and very general and basic information. You can search by region, by state. You can see how many FFOs per state, how many different type of products there are farming, and some general information in that. And you can actually get catters as well, or tables. You can see which organization produces bananas, soy, corn, etc. And you can find, and a potential buyer can directly source from the FFOs in this platform. We've got the public information, and we built a web page containing an index of all these FFOs. Nevertheless, the FFOs can modify the page, the virtual web page that we created, and they can improve it so they can actually have an online presence that they can edit, and they can do it as part of our platform, and they can provide more details on the number of members, what the social capital is, the type of products they farm. So we have had a lot of interest, mostly from the commercial banking system. Mostly, I feel, is the one that has used the platform the most. Other projects that we are conducting, it's a project that I am conducting in Mexico. It's still at its infancy stages, but it does represent pricing structure at the national level. The whole idea is to get prices from the supply distribution centers and estimate what the price is by productive region, and to estimate indexes. And with these indexes or rates, that we can create price coverage. And this coverage can be done as long as price dissemination or the prices are obtained in a transparent, trustworthy manner, so that we can create a list, so that we can create price coverage. For example, here on the map, we can see avocado, the price of avocado in a very specific way in Tamaulipas and southern Baja. You can see 45 up in the north and 78 in Baja. And the whole idea is that these prices that we can get every single day, so you can get the prices, and the farmers can get this information daily on their WhatsApp, on their phones. So theoretically, we could create coverage of prices, options. Another project would be the proximal sensing for high throughput phenotyping of bacterial blight in rice. I think this is new. Some of you are familiar with this, but there's not a product for all. To be able to identify the productivity of the different crops, or maybe a disease. It depends on the type of soil and the variety. It's just not a cookie cutter model. This has to be done locally, and this is well worth your consideration to have this tool in the region. And another project that we are implementing at its infancy stages is using satellite photos to estimate the production area for certain crops. Like that, the farmers, this is public information, so the government can estimate how many hectares are producing corn, soy, and we can see the effect when prices and the fertilizers change. how the relative price differential changes the intention of sowing a specific crop. So these are some of the tools that we are developing in the TCI, the Tata Cornell Institute, and this is a great audience to showcase this, and we are open to any type of collaboration. We have a lot of experience collaborating with institutions around the world. So once again, thank you very much for your participation in this event. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Leslie. And then in closing, Dr. Otero. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna be super short. So I'd like to commend Mario, the team, Fatima. I don't see. Oh, there she is, Pepe. Mario, you need to rest tonight because tomorrow we must push on forward. I would also like to congratulate the ICT's team. You guys are fantastic. The interpretation team, I don't know what they're saying at this time of the day. They're probably just blabbering. And the institutions that have been with us throughout this effort. Very short reflection. Hopefully, we don't get to see each other in 2 years because what we need to do here is create a process that can become irreversible and stronger by the day. When you define a map, a route map, we need to ask, where are we? We have to be very specific with what we're trying to achieve. And I think that our governments are a little bit overwhelmed due to what's going on right now. So what we need to do is help them and create a partnership that is strong with private sector, government, NGOs, academia. And I believe that's important. And I repeat myself, and I am 100% in agreement with Sergio when he says we need to define very concrete things, missions. And to me, training and technical assistance is absolutely the cornerstone. I don't know how long ago there were training in cooperativism as Director General of ICA. I want to double down on this, and we have to. I offer some resources to create training courses on cooperativism. We have a leadership school. It's a leadership training school for the transformation of agro-food systems, and I believe that cooperativism, believe it's a cornerstone in this, and I believe that we're going to raise to the occasion. I don't know if Mario was able to tell you, we do have a rural leadership course. We hope to reach 100 rural leaders, which to us is the soul of rural organizations, because these are seeds that need to be multiplied in time and space. We are discussing a dignified employment platform in rural environments for the increase in difficulties and the return of our migrants. How can we increase employment in the rural areas? IICA is a technical cooperation institution. In technical cooperation, I didn't know what that meant, and I did find a definition, cooperatio from the Latin, is the action and the result of constructing something together. And I believe what we have done in these two last days is that precisely. We have constructed, thank you very much all. ICA is your home. Whenever you want to come, you are most welcome as an institution of the Americas that believes in the agriculture and a more dignified rural environment and at the service of our peoples. Thank you very much. I ask you now, since we have been sitting down for a long time, one last effort. Our colleagues from ITCs and we want to visit the center of the interpretation of the future of and then we're going to the lobby afterwards and then we'll have a coffee break. Thank you very much.